Yo, what's up, guys? Figured I figured I would do a little live stream. Hopefully, we can find some good bets. League of Legends lines have been posted for tomorrow, so a lot of bets open. Hopefully, we can win some bets. So, again, like I say this in every video, but you want to have as many sportsbook accounts as possible. More books you have, the better, right? You never know which books are going to be running promos on a given day, right? So, for example, this sports book, Sleeper. So, if you go here, I definitely recommend following the sports books on Twitter, and I don't say that because you know they usually have useful stuff, but I try to get alerted to these really good promos. So this sportsbook Sleeper, they're running a promo, essentially on Otani. They're bringing his strikeout line down from 7.5 to 5.5. So that's a play we want to be on. So more sports books you have, the better. Again, I'm going to focus, unsurprisingly, on the sports books I use, but there's tons of sports books out there, right? So this is currently the best play available, for one of the books I use, but I bet it on an earlier live stream, so I won't bet it again. But you can see here, Oviedo, his under 3.5 strikeouts is priced at around minus 160 on most sports books. Fliff is offering minus 125. So clear value. The general premise of OddsJam is follow the data. And it sounds stupid, but I mean, when I started sports betting and started researching, initially I thought, oh, I'm going to create my own model to predict the future and, create odds better than FanDuel and DraftKings and Caesars. But you got to remember, these are billion-dollar companies right here, right? So, you're not just going to be able to create a model that's smarter than them. They have hundreds of employees, better data feeds than you, stuff like that. The way you beat them is they all set lines independently. So the market's really, fragmented. So you find big discrepancies in the market and you hunt for value. So you can see right here, this is a great bet. We have tons of videos about how to break down the profit margin of your play, right? So here's the highest profit margin play. It's on Bet365. Maybe that sports book is legal in your location. Maybe you use it, maybe you don't. But the more books you use, the better, right? Sometimes there's really good bets on PrizePicks. Sometimes it's Underdog Fantasy. But what we can do is we can start out looking for some plays. So we can go here to, I like to pull up a few different tools. So you can see here, what we can do is I can go to League of Legends, and we can look for some plays between Underdog Fantasy, PrizePicks, stuff like that. You can see, maybe not the leagues you expected. League of Legends, there's usually some pretty good bets available. And you may be like, oh, I don't watch League of Legends. I don't like League of Legends. But the reason you should be betting on League of Legends is pretty simple. There's a lot of games, right? There's a lot of games and the market's pretty inefficient. So, if you look at League of Legends, Underdog Fantasy has thousands of odds, thousands of different things you can bet on. Most of these things won't be profitable. But again, it's like a Friday at 7:30 p.m. The sports books aren't keeping that close of an eye on their lines, especially for a more niche sport like League of Legends. Whereas you think about MMA, MMA, can you make money betting it? Yeah, but there's only, 8, 10, whatever fights per week. So there's just less betting opportunities. There's less games. It's easier for sports books to keep their lines in check. So all this, fantasy optimizer tool on OddsJam does is it points out line discrepancies in the market. So if we take a look right here, what's up, guys? So if we take a look here, we'll go to player first map kills. So we'll take a look here, and we'll try to find some plays, on Underdog Fantasy, on PrizePicks, kind of talk through some of these concepts. So if we look up this player tied, just as an example, so let's go to this player. We can pull them up. We can see there's this discrepancy between Underdog Fantasy and PrizePicks. It's not really clear, which sports book is screwing up. But you can see there's a lot of League of Legends line discrepancies. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, it seems like, some League of Legends slips. And I know we've already created some today. I've tweeted some out, but hopefully we can find some more good ones. You can see just a lot of discrepancies, 3.5 versus 3, right? You typically don't see this in the MLB, big discrepancies like this. And the reason is, again, there's less games. Sportsbooks keep a closer eye on their lines. The games are typically at normal times. League of Legends, I mean, games are going on, all night long. This stuff is, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So sportsbooks just don't keep that close of an eye on their odds. So we can find some pretty good betting opportunities, I'm sure. So let's kind of get into it. So what we can do is we can look up this first player, right? We can see what team this person's on. So Tide, this player's line is 2.0 on Underdog Fantasy. And on PrizePicks, this player's line is, we can go to Tide, is 1.5. So when you're betting on esports, a really, useful strategy is you want to pair players from opposing teams to go opposite directions. And you can do this for PrizePicks Underdog. So when you find two good bets, right, you want to take players on opposing teams. So whoever's on this BYND team, you want to take, a player on the opposing team on Underdog to go over, right? So that's a really big benefit, and it's called correlation. And we have a bunch of videos about it. I've explained it in other videos, but regardless, we'll kind of explain a little bit more about it in this video. Whoa, here's another play, Carzy, right? And here you can see another play on Underdog Fantasy. So if you look at this Prince player, right, his line is 2.5 on Underdog, right? If you take a look at ParlayPlay, they have his line at 3. And if you take a look at PrizePicks, his line's also at 3. So again, it's no offense, you're probably not going to be able to create a model that helps you, set lines better than the sports books. But in general, you get the point, right? Sports books have this line at 2.5, right? Underdog Fantasy, one book has this line at 2.5. The other data points are telling us, hey, this line should be higher. It should be at 3. Right? PrizePicks is a bigger company, a more sophisticated company. So maybe we put a little bit of whatever, wait until their odds. So this seems like a good play to go with. But again, what kind of stinks about esports is there's not a ton of books posting odds, right? FanDuel doesn't have esports odds, neither does Caesars, DraftKings. And again, when you're, betting on these things, you have to remember, more data points is better. So when I look at this play on Fliff, Oviedo under 6.5 strikeouts, which you should, definitely be on if you're not already. There are tons of sports books posting odds on this, right? And they're all pricing this. All these sophisticated books, really complex models, they've invested millions of dollars in their ability to set lines. They're all pricing this at minus 160. Fliff has it minus 125. It's pretty clear. According to all these billion-dollar companies, big companies with sophisticated models, they're taking bets, moving around their lines due to supply and demand. You can see, right, sportsbooks move odds constantly. And my battery's low, so that's no fun. But regardless, we'll hit some plays. So the first play we can go with is Prince over 2.5. And this play is on Underdog Fantasy. So we've loaded up our first play, and it's okay, cool. So then what we can do is we can look at some of these other discrepancies. And ideally, we can find a player on the opposing team, C9, to go under on Underdog Fantasy. So this play is from a different game, right? This play is from, obviously a different game. So that's not that helpful. So it's just a little time intensive to, find players, kind of from the same game. So we're looking for another player on Prince's opposing team, ideally. So here it's when you're betting on the NBA, if you think about it, you're never going to see 7 versus 8. You're never going to see a sports book with LeBron's rebound line at 7, another sports book at 8, right? These discrepancies just don't happen. It only happens in esports because the market is, very fragmented, very inefficient, whatever you want to call it. So I'll go ahead, I'll remove this. And what we can do is we can just look for some correlated plays. So here's another play, Putin over 8.5, right? So you can see none of these players are on the same team. So we can go here and we can take his under 9.5. So basically on Underdog Fantasy, I've explained this before, but they have 6x payouts for these 3-pick entries. PrizePicks only has a 5x payout, right? Or sorry, let me add in one more pick. So PrizePicks only has a 5x payout for these 3-pick entries. Underdog Fantasy is 6x. So long story short, like, you know, if you go through the math, which we have a bunch of videos about, you want to be placing 3-pick entries on Underdog Fantasy, but on PrizePicks, you definitely don't want to be placing these 3-pick entries. So here we have it on Underdog Fantasy, right? And what we can do is we can, like, you know, it's called middle betting. But what we can do as a strategy is, like, we found this big line discrepancy, 8.5 versus 9.5. And this works for any sport, you know, NBA, a player's at 8.5 rebounds on, you know, Underdog Fantasy. He's at 9.5 on PrizePicks. What you can do is you take the under on the sportsbook with their line at 9.5. You take the over 8.5, right, on Underdog Fantasy. And if Putin ends up with exactly 9 kills in map 1-2, you're going to win both bets. So on Underdog Fantasy, I want to place a 3-pick entry, but on PrizePicks, I still need, you know, 3 more picks because we ideally want to place a 5 or 6 pick flex play. So I need 3 more picks before I'm going to place this entry. But this one on Underdog Fantasy, you know, we can fire off. So I'm going to bet this now. And then if I find some more good picks on PrizePicks, I'll end up hedging Carzy, right? I'll take his under 8 on PrizePicks, and Putin, I'll take his under 9.5. So we can go ahead and we can lock this in on Underdog Fantasy. And it says the projection has changed. So unfortunately, that happens sometimes, like especially when I'm on live stream. Before I can place a bet, you know, great bets are just not going to last forever. So you can see this first play on Carzy was already removed on Underdog Fantasy. So I'm going to have to, you know, whatever, skip over that. But what we can do is we can try to find a player on the opposing team for Putin. So if we go here to, you know, esports, we can type in, you know, we can try to find this game, and then we can try to find a player on the opposing team, Team Flash versus GAM. So we can look for a player on GAM, Kiaya, right? So nothing here. League of Legends. So we're ideally looking for a play on Underdog Fantasy where OddsJam is recommending the under, where there's a line discrepancy on the under. So we can put in Katie, nothing. We can put in Zin, nothing. We can put in Slater, nothing. Probably, so nothing. So no correlation there, but whatever. What we can do is we can just go back. Sometimes you can find positively correlated slips, but, you know, not always. So we can go here to NL1, right? OddsJam's recommending under 2.5, and it's like, okay. And then we want to go to this specific game and ideally look for a player on the opposing team to be going over, right? So on Underdog Fantasy, it's recommending we take the under. So I'm looking for a player on the opposing team, FUR, to go over. So I can put in Zay. Nope. I can put in AU and Tuts. So none of these players are showing up. So there may not be any value, you know, in this game, but we have a couple good plays. So what we can do is we can go back here. Did not mean to do that. So let's go back here. Goot. Anything. There's a play in yellow, so like mediocre, which maybe is good enough to go with. So what we can do is we can pair this together, right? On Underdog. So these players are on opposing teams. So you can see they actually move the line up to, or PrizePicks has the line at 3.5. Underdog Fantasy's at 3. So we found a line discrepancy, and these plays are also positively correlated. So if this guy goes over, Goot, then the person on the opposing team is more likely to go under. So we have the added benefit of positive correlation. So what we can do is this Prince play, you know, we're just taking, again, because ParlayPlay has his line at 3, PrizePicks has his line at 3. These other plays, maybe we'll end up hedging this Putin play, right? We can take the under 9.5 on PrizePicks to kind of hedge. We found this line discrepancy, take advantage of it. But what we can do is lock in this 4-pick insured entry, right? I'm trying to move a little quicker because the first time it moved on me. So we'll go ahead and we'll lock this in. So there we go. 4 picks for the max I could. You can see max bet size $100, you know. So a bunch of League of Legends picks. So we got our first slip down. We found 4 plays with an edge. Good stuff. I typically just like bounce between sports books. Really never know where the value is going to be. If I'm in, Virginia, I'm initially from Virginia. I'll place bets on, Bet365, a sports book that's legal in Virginia. FanDuel, legal in a lot of states, right? You can see Zambia, under half of a team total goal in the Women's World Cup, is plus 154 on FanDuel. Pinnacle, which is known to be one of the smarter sports books, the sharper bookmakers, you can see they've moved the odds a lot lower from plus 145 to plus 132. So they're moving odds in favor of the under, right? You can see recently, at least, lines are a bit moving towards the under. BetMGM's gone from plus 140 to plus 125, all the way down to plus 115 on the under. So clearly for tomorrow's game, action is coming in on Zambia. I mean, there's weighted action coming in towards the under, right? Sportsbooks are dropping odds on the under, which means people have been betting the under. Maybe Zambia's best player is, got in. But we're following information in the market that, hey, Zambia's under is dropping, right? In terms of the odds, which means the under is more likely, right? The under is less big of an underdog. Before it was a plus 145 underdog 2 hours ago on Pinnacle. Now they're at plus 132. Maybe a lineup change happened, right? Maybe official lineups were released and the market thinks that, Zambia is, more likely to not score a goal. Whatever the reason is, lines moved, right? It's just like the price of a stock. If you think about the price of a stock, if I look up Facebook stock, I don't really know why it's down 3% today. But the market is based on, supply and demand of everyone. There's thousands of people who wake up every single day, thinking about, is this stock overvalued or undervalued? And then they make trades according to it. And this is the price where supply and demand is equal. So clearly there was more demand to sell Facebook today as opposed to, buy it. So maybe, who knows? Maybe the company's not making as much money as predicted. Maybe people just decided to sell because they're not bullish on Facebook stock. But for whatever reason, the market has adjusted and here's its current price. So it's kind of the same thing here. I can't tell you exactly why their odds have moved from plus 145 to plus 132. Maybe Zambia's best player got injured, or maybe just a bunch of sharp action, really smart bettors started hammering the under. Who knows, right? Maybe the weather changed. I'm not sure if the World Cup's played outside, but regardless, you kind of get the point. And it's the same thing for UFC, right? There can be bets on all these different books. More books you have, the better. So we locked in a play on Underdog Fantasy with positive correlation. So again, in esports, right? Pretty simple. You want to take players on opposing teams, right? One to go over, right? Goot over. And then ideally, you can find a player from the opposing team to go under. And we have some videos about it. I talk about it in other live streams. I don't want to talk about the same thing for like 20 minutes during every live stream. But you can see over here, under here. This is a really useful strategy when you're betting on League of Legends, Dota 2, like a bunch of different sports that I definitely recommend. So what we can do is we can go to PrizePicks now, and we can see if we can find any plays on PrizePicks. Right? And again, on PrizePicks has a little bit of an added benefit. And the added benefit is that you can bet players from the same team, and players from the same team are positively correlated to both go the same direction. So I'm going to cash this out. I'm not actually going to bet it, but you're going to see it let me bet it. So players from the same team, you take both overs or both unders. Players from opposing teams, you take one over, one under. So anyways, let's go back here. Is there any special MLB value on PrizePicks? We can check out ParlayPlay. We can check out Hot Streak. We can check out JockMKT. Again, I have used over 50 sports books. A lot of people talk about, bans and I hate this sports book. No sports book has ever stolen my money. You know, some sports books I don't like using as much, or they don't have as many profitable bets. But like